my distinguished pleasure to be the part of today's conference. Only 2 years ago, I was present on the same scene, presenting at the first conference, talking about SEPA integration very cautiously with my dear peers from the region. We had big dreams to become a member of SEPA, but our targets were far away, 2028, maybe 2030. And look at us now. 3 years from that date, we are 21 days shy of the first SEPA transaction. We made it. In that regard, I will use this opportunity to extend my sincere appreciation to all 11 banks, which will be starting October 6th, become the members of integrated SEPA market in operational terms. My special thanks goes to especially all 66 members of the SEPA task force teams from 11 banks, which had the very difficult who had a very difficult role to implement SEPA into their streams and to make the ownership of the process. This process entailed more than 245 reports from 11 banks in the course of 10 months, more than 100 joint meetings, 5 workshops with our distinguished trusted advisor, Mr. Kjeld Herrman, co-founder of Paylume, who was there with us to help us to overcome each and every operational or strategic glitch that would potentially enable us to integrate into SEPA. Once more, congratulations. We did an outstanding job as a team, but I would highlight that SEPA is just a particle. It is the part of the puzzle that we are gathering in enhancing our payment landscape. And here us today, our major role will be to highlight where we stand when it comes to development of our payment system, both domestically and internationally. In that regard, once more, I want to introduce you to Mr. Herrman, who have been our trusted advisor during SEPA integration process, now will be our trusted advisor under the implementation of TIPS clone, and as of yesterday, representing us before EPC and fighting for the rights and interests of Montenegrin banks in Brussels. So I really invite you to just give applause to Mr. Herrman.
Thank you very much.
Our first idea is just to have 2 separate presentations where I would give some kind of a general strategic overview as a deputy governor, where Mr. Herrman would go into nitty-gritty details on the, I would say, operational aspects that our banks needs to have overcome in order to become, I would say, interoperable with European payment infrastructures. However, at the end, we came to the idea it is the best to merge our presentations because we did the whole road on SEPA integration together. We are heading toward TIPS together. So what is where I believe that the best message is to present you with the changes in our payment landscape together, given that he is very much acquainted with the adjustment in our payment system. So in that aspect, I will start with the first slide, where we stand, what us as a regulator were thinking when we embarked on change of our payment system landscape. We are very much aware of the fact that payments standing still means falling behind, i.e. us as a very small economy, we cannot afford to stay still. We need to be agile, we need to be ahead of the curve, we need to run as Alice in the Wonderland. It takes all the running that we can do to stay in the same place. And that is precisely where we are. However, even to be in this position where today we are faced with the fact that more than 100 jurisdictions already have fast instant payment incorporated in their payment landscape, we needed to, I would say, finalize three very, very important building blocks together with banks. The first one was legal alignment, EU acquis alignment, namely, in order to create EU interoperable infrastructures, we needed to underpin it with European standards. Together, we did that as of February 2025, where we fully implemented PSD2 together with bylaws. Our second building block is the one where we are at the moment. On international front, we are joining SEPA. On domestic front, we are developing TIPS clone. Overlay services reflects our third layer, which is very, very important because it highlights the very essence of the changes within the payment system, reachability. We don't want development of the payment infrastructure without the purpose. There is enormous gap in the usage of the payment infrastructures in Montenegro, and it is our joint task to fill that gap. Where we started when it comes to SEPA transfers, I think that for the sake of transparency, we as a regulator really need to showcase where we were. And I think that it is no secret that our SWIFT transfers to SEPA markets were extremely high, especially for corporates. Look at the figures for sending outbound transactions above 20,000. It reaches almost 240 euros. Average fee for outbound SEPA transfer via SWIFT in 2024 was at the level of 73.4 euros. In addition to that, the latest research done by the World Bank from the August of this year consider Montenegro to be the most expensive B2B corridor, not only among Western Balkan countries, but of course, consequently, in Europe as well. Figures are staggering. For a transfer of 5,000 euros within the Western Balkan region, Montenegrin corporate sector needs to pay around 0.9% of the value that they are sending. Corridors level within the Western Balkans are the most expensive between Montenegro and North Macedonia. In order to send 20,000 euros, the corporate sector would need to pay 1.1% of the value of the transactions. So this is staggeringly more than 20 times more what is the European standard. I will now leave this slide to Mr. Herrman to present his views on where we stand at the moment, or where we were standing when it comes to dynamics of our payment transactions.
Thank you. So what did I want to show with this slide? It is the number of transactions that we are doing in Montenegro per capita compared to EU standards. Right? You mentioned the high prices that we've seen the data from the World Bank for, whether we don't have a lot of transactions due to high prices, or whether we have high prices due to a lack of volumes. We can interpret it either way. But what do we see? In any case, in Montenegro, if we compare it to the Eurozone averages, we're only doing about half the transactions as the average Eurozone countries. And if we go to markets that are even further developed when it comes to digital payments, I'll look at, for example, the Netherlands, Finland, we're not even at a fifth of those type of volumes. So there's definitely a lot of room for growth in the markets and a lot of potential to improve the experience for Montenegrin payment service users. And that growth becomes even more prominent when we zoom into the figures. Here, if we're actually looking at the transfers that are being currently done in Montenegro, we see that this whole big block in blue are book-to-book transfers. People have organized their lives to be able to do banking within the same bank as their employers, as their family, and so on and so forth, because the costs for book-to-book transfers are much lower, right? So we see book-to-book transfers much higher than in other European markets. And then if we look at the interbank credit transfers, so that would be the green portion of this pie, we see that about a third of those interbank credit transfers are related to public sector payments, which means that the pure private sector interbank credit transfers is only basically a quarter of the payments that are being done in Montenegro, which are again only half of the EU averages. Right? One of the reasons for that might be the lack or slow digitalization that's taking place in the market.
Yes, indeed. One of, I would say, lackluster features of the Montenegrin market is that we are faced with underutilization of the digital channels within the banking system by the corporate sector. Today we listened about implementation of the IE in e-commerce, etc. However, I believe that we need to go back to the basics. As you may observe in the research that we have provided, we can already see quite clearly that the corporate sector is not using available digital channels. In today's world, this is unacceptable. Just to mention, there are, for example, situations that in large banks, only 3% of the corporate sector who have actively opened account who are using combined both m-banking and internet banking. This enormous asymmetric information and asymmetric gap existing between corporate sector and banking sector is worrisome, whether it's due to lackluster and deficient financial education, existing, I would say, practices and proclivity for cash payments, or I would say underdeveloped ERM models within the corporate sector. It is yet to be seen. This slide will be a very, very core of our attention in the future.